welcome. Good morning. My name is Bob Dahill, and on behalf of the Pine Orchard Association, the Pine Orchard Beautification Committee, I'd like to welcome you to the dedication ceremony for Pine Orchard Triangle Park. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. I'd like to thank our special guest, Sean Scanlon. You're over here to the left, our representative. Thank you very much for joining us. I'd also like to thank Jamie. Jamie, I thank you again for being here. You've all heard the phrase, it takes a village, and this project has really been pulling it together from lots of different folks and connecting the dots. So I'm just going to take a minute to introduce some people and to thank everybody, because some of the stories that allowed us to pull this together were really important. First group is I'd like to thank the Beautification Committee. Bernadette Stack, who's not here with us this weekend, had us give us a chance to put together the plaque. We went through the dates. She worked with Jane Booley, who is our town historian, and established some of the dates and figures, went back and checked it, and I think this looks grand. I didn't know what it was going to finally look like. We had pictures, but it's come out very well. I'd like to thank Jane working with Bernadette. I'd also like to thank sort of my co-chair, partner in crime, Judith Liebman. Judith is here somewhere. Judith's landscape design background allowed us to go from what was kind of an open area that had been cleared to what we have now as a park environment. So we're excited to see the transformation. Judith will take us through a little bit of her vision and how the transition occurred, and take us through a little bit of the history as to how we arrived at the park, and we'll do that shortly. I'd also like to thank the members of the Beautification Committee. We have Bernadette, we have Judith, Eunice LaSala. Eunice is involved in a lot of these groups in town, and whenever she's involved, her support is tremendously appreciated. She was with us from the beginning, and thank you very much for your support, Judith. It's much appreciated. We have a number of other folks. William Singer. William, you're here. Thank you. Vining Bigelow. I talked about Bernadette. Susan Davis, Graham Mason, my neighbors who have kind of had to listen to me all the time, particularly Dwayne Halgren, who's over here with Susan, and Harrison Levy. Peg Taylor, did I miss you? I think Peg is here, and Graham Mason. So the Beautification Committee gets all these phone calls and emails from me late at night, but thank you for your support, and we appreciate all your efforts. We really have a lot of people who were part of this process. I'll take you through a number of them quickly because you'll see how it evolves. We also have members of our RTM here. I don't know if Tricia Anderson had a chance to make it, or Tom Brockett, but Robin Sandler's here. Robin is not only on the RTM representing our area, but Robin's also the president of the Pine Orchard Association, and the group was very supportive of our efforts in supporting it and funding it, which is always a big part of the process, and it takes a while. So Robin, thanks very much for your support. It's much appreciated. I'd also like to thank our town attorney, Bill Anaskowicz. I don't know if he's here, but Bill gets a lot of phone calls and a lot of emails and stuff, and he handles it well. He's supportive of the neighborhood, he's supportive of the community, and we thank him very much for his ongoing efforts. Jane Booley, our town historian, worked with Bernadette and kind of verified all the dates and times and showed us where to get the information. We always kind of think that Pine Orchard comes from all the pine trees, and there's probably some truth to that, but for sure we know where Blackstone Park is, we know what the area is, and Jane Booley sort of pointed us all in the right direction and sort of helped us move it along. I'd like to thank the Pine Orchard board. There's 11 of our members. They've been supportive from the very beginning. This idea sort of evolved over time, and people said, let's do this and let's do that. And it was the example of a committee that kind of worked really well together. So we're very pleased with that. Now, in the Pine Orchard Association, we have our jack of all trades, and I think you might have met him. He goes under the name of the office manager, otherwise known as Peter Robinson. Peter today is the sound man. He's also the guy when you call the office, he's on the phone, he answers the questions. If he's got some problems, he tries to get a resolution. He's the fellow who sends out the emails about announcements. But Peter was also the fellow who helped put together the chapel concert series. It was an idea that had been kicked around for a while, but Peter kind of wrapped his brain around it, picked the dates, got the groups, somehow found out that the Whiffenpoofs were going to be available, secured them for the second date, and I think we got off to a great start. It was 4 concerts. We found out that the chapel has terrific acoustics, so for groups that come in the future or singers who come in the future, I think they'll enjoy entertaining there. So Peter, thanks very much. Now you know what the guy at the other end of the phone looks like. Thank you again for all your help, Peter. I'd like to tell you a quick story. Some of the people who helped. We had all this kind of in the works, and we had a chance to get the plantings in and stuff, and we met our town tree warden, Diana Ross. And Diana can't be with us this weekend, but Diana said, you know, where are you going to get some of the trees and the plantings? We had a long conversation, and she said, I think I can help. Another one of Jamie's team. And so the tree warden, Diana Ross, offered and provided 3 of the trees that are here in the park. But she introduced us by email to the Environmental and Conservancy Commission, which is a group in town I didn't know enough about. And Dan Fitzgerald is here today from that group. And Dan contacted me and said that he and the commission had heard about what we're doing and said, you know, we'd like to support it. They donated 6 trees to the Triangle. So the 9 trees that went in were either given by the commission or by the tree warden. So, you know, when you didn't know that some of the groups were here, and it turns out that not only did they contribute, but they contributed in a big way. Thanks very much. We hope to do a couple of more projects and continue with that. You know, it's okay to have all the planning and stuff and people participated, but at the end of the day, somebody has to actually come and do the work. And you've seen all these folks in these big trucks that are driving around town. Well, it's the Department of Public Works. And Gary Zielinski, who's in the back, his team, and Gary leading them, had enormous contribution to our efforts. You know, so we're going to put in a berm. I kind of knew what a berm was. I didn't expect it to be 120 feet long. We didn't expect to have another one up here. And I've kiddingly said that although we all have backyards and grass and soil and stuff, in the end, this is really green concrete. This is really sort of hard packed. Gary's team came in, they put in the berm, they helped us with the plantings. And then a quick little story. The benches that Judith and Dwayne and the group were so helpful in getting were being shipped. And I thought, that's great, but I don't have a garage. So we weren't sure where they were going to go. The Department of Public Works accepted the delivery, and they assembled them. And because they're wood, you can do nice things with wood, so they put them together. And then we had to put in the pads. So they assembled all of the benches, and of course the one at the end of Spring Rock Road that overlooks the Thimbles and Long Island Sound. And when they finished, they put the benches in a truck, brought them over, laid them out. We spent a little bit of time finding positioning, and then they measured it, took them back, came in here, put in the pads, put the pad at the end of Spring Rock Road, put those little tents over it so all the concrete would sit properly, and then about 2 weeks later they came back. A lot of work, a lot of follow through, and I think the positioning of the benches and the one at the end of Spring Rock have been wildly successful. So we really appreciate that. So we got here, we got the benches in. No, please, that's right, I think. So when you finish your backyard with a shrub or two, or maybe a whole landscape job, what do? You get your watering can or your hose, and you come over and you start to water. No water. There's no water on the Triangle, not that there should be. So I'd like to thank Art Yamada and his wife Barbara. We kind of knocked on their door and said, could you help us out? And when we started the watering process back in maybe June 15th, we just didn't water for the end of June. It was all July and all August and September, and y'all remember how hot it was during the summer. So Art and Barbara, thank you. You saved the day. And it went on for until about 2 weeks ago, the middle of October. So much appreciated. So we have water. Now, I don't know if Frank is here. Frank works at the library from up until about 1 o'clock and has a small landscaping business in the afternoon. Frank is on our street so much that I just kind of thought he bought one of the houses for sale. But in reality, he's always working in the neighborhood. And when Frank came by, he would take the hoses, which you've probably seen here, lug them across the street, hook them up over at Yamada's, and then he would come back and he'd water 2-3 times a week for 2 hours at a stint, June, July, August, September, and as I say, we just finished. So it was really a group effort. I mean, some of the parts is greater than the whole, take the village, whatever it is. And this is what we have. So I'd like to thank everybody. I think we've gotten everybody to participate. We hope that we'll be able to continue these projects. What I would like to do next is introduce Judith Liebman. Judith is, through her landscape design background, kind of created what we have here today, working with Gary and raising the canopy and planting the trees and putting in the bushes. And we have a couple other projects in mind that we'll speak to Jamie about down the road. But Judith will tell us a little bit about the history, a little bit about her vision, and then we'll do a little presentation and take some pictures at the end, and take lots of pictures, because the sound has suggested that if we can take a picture or two, and if you have a good article, they'll print it for next week. So Judith, would you like to say a few words? Ladies and Judith Liebman.
So he just said to me, no thank yous. And I said, you wish, because I've been trying to get something done at this triangle for maybe 20 years. And it wasn't until Bob came along, who has this enormous talent for not ruffling any feathers, the opposite of me. And he was able to have everybody find enthusiasm for this. So thank you, Bob. Without you, nothing would have happened. Jane Booley can't be here, and she and Peg Taylor, who gave me a copy of the original conveyance paper, all contributed to find out exactly what happened here over the years. So unfortunately, this is most likely, if not surely not, the pine orchard after which our community is named. That's probably in Thimble Farm somewhere. Closer? Is that better? So a brief history of Pine Orchard and where this triangle fits in. At the very beginning, before there was a railroad or really easy access, there were very few people who came to what was then known as World's End, named after World's End Creek, which is next to the club. There were a few people, but then in 1852, the railroad came in, and people from surrounding metropolises such as Wallingford and Waterbury and New Haven built little beach cottages, again, at the east end of what is now Pine Orchard. A couple named the Youngs, Ellen and Aldrich, rented one of those cottages, and they liked being here, and so they approached a local farm, which was what is now the western part of Pine Orchard, owned by the Blackstone family. It was a farm like you would see in Maine, where they get salt hay and things like that. 200 acres. And they bought a huge piece of property from them and continued to buy land until they had about 800 acres. And with that, they started developing. It was he who put in these roads, and I imagine that he put those roads in to access the houses that he built, one of them, which is mine, built in 1895, Queen Anne Victorians, and then modified into something less Victorian as the years went by, down on the shoreline. And these roads were put in, and I assume that the triangle was left after the roads were put in, and he put a hedge around it, but he didn't actually have a purpose for it. It was like a magnified road circle. And I guess it stayed that way while they continued to develop. He died young, relatively young, in 1911, and his family founded a company which then ran all of their properties and businesses until the 1970s. In 1971, when they were kind of letting go of all the reins, they gave this, a lot of the property, like Young's Pond, Mirror Lake, was conveyed to the town. So since 1971, the town has owned this. And we moved in here about 1973. And as I watched I watched trees fall from hurricanes. I watched weeds grow through the hedge, maples and whatever that all just got cut off with the rest of the hedge. It just looked awful, which prompted me to say, why can't we do anything? And I was told it's none of my business. Until Bob came along 20 years later. And things have flipped to the point where not only did the Pine Orchard Association encourage us, but the budget for this planting was enormous. And they even have extra money in there so we can do other projects in Pine Orchard, these what we would call pocket parks. Public Works, Diana Ross, who Bob mentioned. I called Diana and she came out and I told her what I would like to do, and she literally, neither of us are small young women, and we literally jumped up and down with each other because we were so excited that we were going to restore the park and finally give it a purpose within the community. Gary Zielinski, who Bob also has mentioned, not only was he willing to come and his crew willing to come, but he has taken such a priority and proprietary interest in here that knowing that this event was going to happen, he and his men came and cleaned it up. Nobody asked them to, but they wanted it to look its best for you guys. So for me, what this all meant was the epitome of what a democratic, open community should be. You have every type of member of this community, from the first selectman to the person who runs a digger. Everybody is dedicated to this particular project, and we worked together. We made money together. We supported it together. We trimmed it. We were given water. We were given everything that anyone could possibly want to do a project like this. And in the end, what we all want is for all of you and anyone who wants to please come in, sit down, have your dogs run around, have your children play soccer. We left open space for that. Use it, enjoy it, and when these shrubs grow taller, it will be even more serene, so that you will sit here and look at the beautiful neighboring gardens, which in the trade is called borrowed landscape, and you will think that you are in heaven. So I hope you all enjoy it for many, many decades to come.
Okay, 2 quick notes as a reminder before we do the presentation. On November 3rd, which is 2 weeks from today, we're going to have a family bulb planting. And we have about 1,000 bulbs. So we encourage you to bring the kids and a trowel and a spade, and we're going to plant the bulbs. Judith will take care of where they go. And the goal is that when the spring comes and you sit on the benches and look out on a bit of a vista, you'll see a sea of color. The barrier will be built a little higher in the back, the trees will grow, and the environment that we're trying to create will be even kind of more exciting than it is. So on behalf of the Commission, thank you. I think what we'd like to do now is have Jamie join us. We're going to do a presentation, and one of the last note, when we say public-private partnership, this is town land, and Mirror Lake, which we might talk about later in the year, is town land. But when we came to them and said we'd like to work with you and improve it for the general community, it's everybody's, to Judith's point, to use. We encourage you to come. It's kind of a walk-to park, or with the dog, or with your bike, or with your friend, or with guests from out of town. But whatever you do, we hope you use it. We hope you enjoy it. If you have some suggestions for it, and we have a few more ideas. So. Jamie, thank you for your support, and we're going to take a couple of pictures if we can. Judith, can you join me? If you have any cameras, we encourage you to, let's see. We should be in the middle? No, we should get. No, I wonder if we can. I'd just like to add that we'd like to thank Jamie for his support, because it's his team that really put this together and allowed us to work with it. I think we're off to a good start, and thank you for being here. Thank you for your support, and I hope we get a chance to work on a few more together. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Should I go to the mic?
Take this.
Well, first, I just want to say, for the record, I wasn't one of the people that told Judith it wasn't mind her own
No,
business.
that was 20 years ago.
No, I know. I only did. But I think it was stated by both Judith and Bob. I mean, this is town land, but this is an example of where an active community, active residents, can come out and really leveraging the resources available. Bob touched upon all the different departments and staff members that were involved, and also commission members who are volunteers who serve the town, the Conservation and Environment Commission. So I just want to thank the Beautification Committee for taking the time and effort to leverage the resources. I remember a couple years ago when there was discussions regarding the property here, and a tree came down, things were removed, but it would just happen piecemeal. But through your efforts, really, in leveraging the resources, it truly was a public-private partnership to really accomplish something that enhances the character of our community. I know Gary Zielinski, who was here in Public Works, did take tremendous pride, and there's been other examples in town, and I'm hopeful, and I know there's effort to address other areas. But I think this is a perfect example of when the community gets involved, what can be done. So thank you on behalf of the town.
Thank you. Well, please join us on November 3rd. If you'd like to plant some bulbs, we'd love to have you. Thanks for being here. Take some pictures and enjoy your park.
Why don't you tell them what we're planting?
Is that here for now?